Call the meeting of Monday, September 9th, 2013, regular council meeting of council to order, just slightly after 7. Would like to take note of the absence of Councillor Sherry Lukens. She is away on personal issues with a family friend. And Councillor Day, I will expect, will join us at some point. Before we approve the agenda, there are 3 items to add. So Council, if you would look to adding under item number 6, 6.1.2, budget process update, and 6.1.3, CAO recruitment process update. And under item 5, correspondence, there will be 1 item in regards to UBCM. With that, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Public participation. This is the time, folks, where we invite you to come before council and speak and let us know what's on your mind. And we'll have a listen. It's not a conversation time. It's simply just an opportunity to speak.
It's Robin from Portsmouth on the Meadow. My daughter wanted to start. Go ahead, love.
Don't kill the species.
I'd like to say something about this matter. The law applies to all dispassionately and logically. Governments are founded on the common human need for consistent, fair treatment of all persons under the law. And the law is drafted in the clearest form possible to make statements on our rights and our responsibilities. Representative democracy is a process by which we entrust people to create laws. And in 2008, Colwood passed a law explicitly compelling any person owning my exact lot to do what I'm doing, not merely giving me the right as a resident, but the responsibility should I choose to develop it. Law is a consistent delineation of rights and responsibilities, applicable regardless of status. It is a violation of the fundamental laws of our country to pick and choose rights and responsibilities after a law is passed based on personal preferences. I've asked repeatedly for clarification concerning these conflicting laws, Bylaw 999 and Bylaw 715, and such has been consistently refused of me. According to the Local Governance Act, it is illegal for council to carry out works inconsistent with Bylaw 999, and therefore it is illegal to interpret Bylaw 715 in a manner which sees biological diversity as unsightly. Democracy is a means to create law, not violate it. If you could at least create a reasonable interpretation of your conflicting laws to explain your position, I would comply. Thank you.
Any other members of public?
I'm Dr. Dan Milkovich, this is Dr. Ken Banks. We're the owners of the Colwood Professional Center at 1910 Souk Road. And we just saw on the agenda today that there was going to be some discussion about the development variance, the application at 1880 Island Highway. And I just wanted to make council aware that we've been dealing with parking issues on a regular basis in our building there. As you know, for people that are familiar with our building, we have the medical center in there, and we have our medical clinic, MD Aesthetics, and there's the pharmacy and Westland Insurance and a number of other businesses in there, the South Island Optometry. And we've got a relatively large parking lot, but it's always full to capacity, or often full to capacity. And we've had to involve Kevin Atkinson, the bylaw officer, to come on out and try to come up with a solution, because years ago when the Academy of Excellence on the corner there was renovating their building, and they had asked, and they were applying for their permit, they were given quite a incredible variance, actually, because they have a school there where they have 40 students at any one time. And the comment from the owner, Lori Chadsey, was that she was going to secure parking off-site, that all her students were going to take the bus, that her employees were going to take the bus. And I can tell you that it's been, in the last, I don't know how many years would that be now, 6 or 7 years probably, a weekly frustration for us with people parking and taking up the parking spots in there. And as building owners who have brought a lot of business, I think people before we bought that building remember that as the old, ice cream, pink, peachy building with the secondhand clothing store in it and a lot of empty space. And we've worked really, really hard to get quality tenants in there and turn that into a professional center, at quite a large cost. And we've been in the community for a long time. We've been business owners there since 1994. But I can't tell you the frustration when we have to be parking lot monitors all the time. We repeatedly hear from our tenants and from our patients, parking lot's full. And when we start spending time there in the morning, we see the students park there, and they walk over, and we've talked repeatedly to Lori about it, and she's eventually thrown up her hands and just said, look, just tow them, which we do. But again, we're physicians. We've got busy days, and being parking lot monitor has been, like I say, it is just a weekly, if not a daily frustration for us. In talking with the bylaw officers, and they're saying there's little we could do other than to perhaps involve a parking lot attendant. I know that over in the Thrifty Foods complex, there, the strip mall, that they often have an attendant walking around there. The cost of that is somewhere in the neighborhood of $45,000 to $60,000 a year, and it's so it's just a cost that we're not willing to take on, and we'd like to just appeal to council to when we saw that there's a parking lot variance being applied for right on the development that's to go on that corner, we naturally had concern, because the parking, of course, is a huge issue there. And I think the bylaw officers would certainly, we've had a lot of very good discussions with them. I couldn't say that it's really where we've come anywhere to a resolution with it, but I really think that we just need to consider the other businesses in that area. I know with the Academy of Excellence, for example, they have new students coming every 4 months. So, and they're overlapping, but every 4 months there's a large group of new students there, and it's like I say, it's been really, really difficult. I know that when Lori was given her variance, it was contingent on her securing space outside of her own building there. I might ask council just that they might want to revisit whether or not she's actually upheld that, and because it does have an impact on our building. I don't know, Kent, do you have anything to add?
I think that's a good summary of the situation.
So
Just like to have everybody take that into consideration when making their.
We're just asking that's, because we're obviously very interested in development in the Colwood Corners area. Like I say, we've been there since 1994. We want to see businesses there and thriving. But the other thing, we attended the meeting with the Capital City project there too, and of course they're in phase 1, and the variance I know that they were given for their parking was for fewer spots, and they made the case that that's consistent with what's going on in Vancouver. However, those numbers didn't actually average out to that until they've actually completed phase 3. And so there is going to be quite a timely period, maybe very timely, between phase 1 and the point that they actually get to providing the number of parking spots that were supposed to be included. So we just thought we'd bring that up to mind again as well. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Margaret Nelson, 237 Portsmouth Drive. Last week was the first time I've ever attended a session of council, and I found it quite educating. As I mentioned last week, both my husband and I were here. We are neighbors, and our property is directly adjoining Mr. Morton's. And we did want to express that we have no issues at all with what he's planning to do with his property, and I rather have enjoyed the meadow look. What I heard last week left me feeling rather astonished, because again, I've never attended a council meeting, and in my mind, council has been elected by the public to uphold the laws of the city of Colwood. And I listened with some astonishment as Ms. Harvey pointed out that before you took a vote, shouldn't you at least check to make sure that there are no conflicting bylaws? And I sat up, and that sounded like a reasonable point to me. What I heard council say was no. I went home and I read the bylaws. And I opened up the web to the city of Colwood, and lo and behold, there is bylaw 999. You know, come to Colwood. We're the city that supports green and all of the initiatives of bylaw 999. And it seemed to me that that was exactly what my neighbor was trying to do, was actually live up to the standards and commitment that Colwood has made to its citizens under that bylaw. I did look up the other bylaw. I believe it's 715. I'm getting knowledgeable now. And what I noticed is that under the unsightly bylaw, it's very clear on trash and garbage and stuff like that, but there was no specific reference to grass. So I looked up the city of Langford's bylaw under unsightly, and it specifically states that tall grass does not qualify as being unsightly. I went to View Royal and Saanich. There's no definition under their bylaws as to what constitutes unsightly in terms of the length of grass. So I guess my concern is that I was really astonished that the council would not take the time to even consider the possibility of conflicting bylaws. Whether the grass is long or short, I think it's only fair to the public that council takes the time to look and to check, and particularly in light of the website and what the website says that this area stands for. So thank you.
Good evening. My name's Pat Hicks. I live at 224 Portsmouth Drive. In all honesty, when the meadow issue came about, just driving by as I drive home every night, it's like, be a neighbor, go up and help him cut his grass, which is just probably the majority of us would think that. Now, after meeting Robin and talking to him several times, it's the last thing I want to do. It's definitely not from a lack of energy and effort putting into his yard, which when it is to completion, which a true yard never really is, it will be something to behold, and it does take time. So also this evening on the way here, Larry and Joan Hoffman, they're absolutely in favor of just leaving Robin alone, let him, do his project. It is kind of an interesting, some people's trash is another man's treasure. It's the neighbor that first complained here, obviously totally disagrees with me and a few of us, but letter of the law, a fence or a hedge, it seems to be is not allowed at this point, but if that makes all parties happy, that we don't see what Robin's creating, then so be it. But as he's informed me that Colwood said they're going to come in and cut it for him, that is just so wrong. Taxpayers' dollars, that's not where I want my money to go. So, thank you.
I'm new to the area, living at a Quattro, but my family live across the street on Seafield Road, and they're unable to come here tonight, so I'm more or less speaking on behalf of them. But what I understand of the project is that the bylaws are not being followed according to the due diligence that's necessary, and as a man ahead of me just said, let the man do his job. I have, over the years, seen what can be done with a piece of property, and I think this man has got tremendous imagination, and understanding of the surrounding area, and that he wants to contribute to this community. And it's my wishes, and also the wishes of my daughter, who has sent you people 2 letters of which she has not had any comment from. Thank you.
I'm Robin Chow. I'm another neighbor on Portsmouth Drive. I'm at 219 Portsmouth. I have a dog and I walk him every day, and I go past Robin's property. And similar to Pat's, initially when I saw the grass getting longer and longer, I kind of thought, geez, I know he's working on his house. Maybe he needs a hand with someone to help him out with his lawn here. Maybe he doesn't have a lawnmower. I don't know. At any rate, as I've spoken with Robin a number of times and gone to a couple of his neighborhood meetings and learned what he's all about, I'm so in favor of what he's doing, and I'm just in awe and admiration of how much he cares about the environment, and he's very willing to fill people in and educate us, and to be for a natural kind of habitat. I'd love to see that meadow transform and continue to develop. I think it's going to have a beautiful conclusion if it's allowed to do so. In terms of the bylaw issue as well, I think there needs to be clarification on that. And, if you go with the unsightly one, in terms of the grass, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think there's an issue of it being unsightly. It seems to be more in terms of maybe the people that are opposing this have very definite ideas on how grass should look. And I don't think that's how everyone feels. And what are the standards? We're not all cookie cutter people, and we have different ideas on our neighborhoods. If you walk around that Portsmouth area, there's a lot of different things going on. Some neighbors have a garden, some have fountains, palm trees. I mean, we could get really nitpicky with one another to say that aspect of your yard is unsightly. I'm going to call bylaw on this, and we'll see what happens. I just think we need to support one another, and I love what Robin's doing, and just ditto to all the other remarks up to this point. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Going for a second time, any other members? And we will conclude the public participation. Moving back to our agenda and Mayor's message. It's been a wonderful summer so far, and I can see by the temperature in the days outside yesterday and today, we're still not through. So I hope you're all taking advantage of and enjoying that. I had the pleasure yesterday of attending the ovarian cancer walk for hope, and they had a glorious morning for their 5K efforts out there, and there was probably about 200 people from around the community out at Royal Roads to participate in that one, as well as an English car show and shine down at Fort Rod Hill. So again, they had 155 cars of English origin going back numerous years through all the decades, and it was quite a pleasure to be a part of that as well. Going forward, we do have a couple of things that have come to my attention. BC Hydro has a community champions program that they are looking to have nonprofit organizations to submit a video to tell us what they are doing to make their community more sustainable. These videos will be accepted by BC Hydro until September the 30th. Upon that closing date, they will select 15 finalists for public voting, and 5 winners will be announced, each receiving $10,000 to continue their sustainability-based projects. If you're aware of any nonprofit groups in your community that may be interested in this program, please share the opportunity. So we will have this posted to our website if anybody's has any of those in mind, that they can check out things a little further along that. And then to jump ahead into early October, because we are having a UBCM week, which will delay our council meeting until September 30th. The Scouts Canada have posted a notice to let us know that their Apple Drive Day is going to be Saturday, October the 5th, between 9 and 3. So you can expect to see the Scout members of our community out in the various public locations looking for their donations that go towards their youth programs in Camp Bernard here on Vancouver Island. It has consistently raised $20,000 locally that has gone directly to support these programs. So look for those boys and girls in the early part of our October the 5th. And that's it for that end of it. Looking then to move on with item number 4, adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council, August the 26th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Looking to receive minutes for planning and land use, June 18th, transportation and public infrastructure, June 3rd, transportation and public infrastructure, July 3rd.
Move for second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. One item of correspondence that requires council direction. I received today a letter of request, again for UBCM coming up here September the 16th, that we are asked to supply the names of 4 attendees to the 2013 Community Excellence Award. We do have a nomination in. Councillor Cullington has spoken to that, as well as I, so I'm still looking for 2 volunteers for that early morning ceremony at 7 a.m. Thursday, September 19th, but I do need names to RSVP to them. So is there anyone available that would like to assist?
I'd be happy to, Your Worship.
Alrighty, Councillor Logan, Councillor Harvey. Okay, so we'll add your names to the list and I will get those distributed, and you must have one of these, so we'll hand those out for UBCM. Thank you. Moving then on to business items under section 6.1, finance and admin. Councillor Martin, 6.1.1, report in regards to 605 Eiderwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Construction had been carried out on a property located at 605 Elderwood without a building permit. The illegal construction facilitated the installation of 2 unauthorized residential units in the existing single-family dwelling. I'm not going to go over the whole overview, but basically to this point, the violation has not been resolved. A notice of title on the property that there are unresolved bylaw and building code issues will serve to make prospective purchasers aware that revisions to the building will be required. The notice of title also limits liability to the city, such as that if the property was to be purchased and occupied and there was an injury, for example, a fire, trip, or fall, the owners could not claim that they were unaware of the deficiencies. Basically, the recommendation is whereas work on the building located at 605 Elderwood Place in Colwood, BC has not been carried out with the permit or inspection as required under the City of Colwood Bylaw 977, the corporate officer is directed to file a notice in the Land Titles Office stating that a resolution, and just to clarify, the resolution is option A under 3, a resolution related to Lot 2, Section 68, Plan blah, 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 has been made upon the Section 57 of the Community Charter, and 2, further information about the resolution may be inspected at Colwood City Hall after regular business hours. And I will so move it, and if you would like, I will actually read the plan VIP 26352, just to make it official. I moved it. So moved.
Seconded.
Comments, questions, council? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 6.1.2 is budget process update. CAO, Mr. Pease.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, in the past, the city's format for budget has been first to take it to the standing committees, and then it goes forward to Committee of the Whole. The suggestion for this year is that we change that process. We change it that everything is done at the Committee of the Whole level. The reason for this would be that the public would then be asking questions of the decision makers, the elected decision makers, that's council acting as Committee of the Whole. It would give the public a forum to be able to make comment, just like the public has always been able to. But the big difference here is that the process would be much more efficient, and I believe decisions could be made much more quickly in front of Committee of the Whole. Most other municipalities in this region operate in that fashion. Although it doesn't stop the standing committees for forwarding information, I believe that we should formally cut out the standing committee presentations and everything be directed at the Committee of the Whole level starting this year.
Comments, questions? Councillor Logan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Would it be reasonable to at least discuss the capital requests at the various various committees? That way, the committee may be able to weed a few out that before it gets to the budget discussions. I'm not saying a whole presentation, but certainly the staff member, like Protective Services, Police Inspector, and the Fire Chief would give their list. We have a discussion and move on, as opposed to the whole budget.
Madam Chair, through to Councillor Logan, that is a possibility. However, if you look at that what happens in the standing committees, they have a self-interest in what they're putting forward, and they're less likely to cut things in their own budget. And one committee doesn't know what the other committees are asking for, so you get this competition being built up in the background, and it's not until it gets to the Committee of the Whole that this council then has to make those tough choices. If the standing committees are cut out, that doesn't occur because this committee, the Committee of the Whole, will be making the decisions right from the beginning. However, it doesn't stop recommendations coming up, but I don't think it should be a formal part of the process.
My question is, do we need a motion or whatever for this, or is it just information?
My preference would be that there be a motion so there's no misunderstanding that the process this year is going to be different than past years.
Okay. So we need to have that come.
I'm happy to move it. I just don't know the wording. How would you like the wording to be?
That staff be directed that for the 2014 budget be done through Committee of the Whole, that all the process be done through Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Then item number 6.2 or 6.1.3 in regards to the CA recruitment process update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, we put out the request for prospective CAOs. It was open for a long period of time, well over 4 weeks. We got 59 applications. Some of them, I would say, we shortlisted them down to 14, all of them having municipal experience of one sort or another, most of them in senior local government positions. The question now becomes is how would this council like to break that group down into a smaller entity. One of the thoughts in the process that was offered to council was that these individuals be interviewed using a Skype process where you do it long distance so that you can get a feeling for the individual. Not only do you hear them, but you see them. And I think that's an important part of this. From that, then council can make the decision who would they like to bring in, because there's some candidates from Saskatchewan, Alberta, and the Northwest Territories. And you really don't want to bring them here unless you've got a high degree of certainty that they're worth interviewing.
So council discussion is, how do you want to see that list proceed? With the opportunity to do a Skype interview on pre-interview? Councillor Clinton?
Thank you. This is a really important position for this city that we're trying to select, and I'm delighted to hear we got lots and lots of candidates. Perhaps, hopefully, one of them is the right person for this community. And yes, it makes a lot of sense to at least, having gone through an initial look at the list and sort of selected the few that are at least worthy of a Skype interview. To do that, it does make sense, both in terms of sort of cutting travel time, costs, etc. Hopefully that's a procedure where we can narrow the list to only those candidates who we consider worthy of an interview for this very important position.
We used a similar process when we were looking for our Director of Finance, and it wasn't without its challenges, but it certainly did add to an opportunity and an overall process to select the best candidate. So what do you need from us to go to take that to the next step?
Well, Madam Chair, there's 10 preferred candidates and then a 4 next level. So the question is, does the whole of council or a group of council want to do the interviews, and are we going to interview the top 10 and leave the remaining 4, and if we have to come back to those, remembering always at the end of the day that the process that was put forward to council, if you're not happy with any of the candidates by the time you've gone through it, don't take the second best, go back out again and start all over again. I think that's a good way to go. So it's just a matter that, does everyone want to be involved in this initial process? I do believe, Madam Chair, that you would definitely have to be there at all times. And remembering that if you're going to interview 10 to 14 people through Skype, that's going to take a number of days to get through all of those. So it is a lengthy process, but it might be worth it.
Do we want to see all 14 at this point, or do we want to try and say maybe the top 6 that score out of that in a Skype go forth?
I think that's reasonable.
So
I guess a subcommittee of council.
Pardon?
I guess those councillors interested in participating in the full-blown, 14 candidate interviews by Skype.
I mean, when we get down to the nitty-gritty, there will be, a panel process that all of council will be involved in, certainly.
Right, and I'm happy to allow somebody else to pare this list down.
So, Councillor Clinton?
Thank you. I was CAO sort of asked us to give some input into the original 14, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to do that. So hopefully we can pull that information to kind of pare it down to, yes, I think 6 is a much more reasonable number. I would certainly be willing to serve on that subcommittee to help interview the 6.
Okay. We're without a couple of council members who might be interested as well, so we could maybe at least make a start with yourself, Councillor Cullington, myself. And are there any other recommendations that you might?
So if I may, Madam Chair, so what you're saying is that what we're going to do is we're going to pick from the 14 what we think are the 6 best. So there's some councillors that have responded to me in that vein already. If the remaining could just give a score number, so at least then I can average them and find out who the best are. Then I would send the list out to make sure that everyone agreed, and then from there request each one of the prospective candidates to give me their Skype address so that we can contact them, and then we would set up interviews.
Fair enough? Reasonable? So we'll take that as a process, next step.
Certainly that would be grand. And then after this, of course, we would get down to possibly 4, and then we would invite them to come here for a formal interview process.
Sounds good. Do we need a motion to that regard?
No, I
Good.
would staff will just carry on.
Okay, thank you, sir. Moving on then to planning and land use 6.2.1 development variance application DVP 0213 2122 Souk Road. In the absence of Councillor Lukens, will that be Councillor Harvey?
Thank you. The applicant is requesting amendments to the land use bylaw to reduce the minimum allowable rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 0.58 meters, and an increase in the maximum allowable gross floor area of a residential building from 350 meters squared to 364 meters squared in order to complete construction of an enclosed sunroom. And it is recommended to Council that Development Variance Permit DVP 0213 be authorized for issuance, which would have the effect of varying A, the minimum allowable rear yard setback requirement in the R1 zone pursuant to Section 5.6.063 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151 from 7.5 meters to 0.58 meters, and B, the maximum allowable gross floor area of a residential building in the R1 zone pursuant to Section 5.6055 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151 from 350 meters squared to 364 meters squared, to allow a partially constructed sunroom addition to be completed on the property described as Lot 5, Section 71, Esquimalt District Plan 25158, 2122 Souk Road, subject to the following condition: that the sunroom addition meets all applicable British Columbia Building Code requirements through a building permit application.
Seconder?
Second.
Comments, questions? Call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.2.2, development variance application DVP 0513 560 Langholm Drive. Councillor Harvey?
And thank you. The applicant is requesting amendments to the land use bylaw to reduce the minimum allowable rear yard setback from 7.5 meters, 24.6 feet, to 2.6 meters, or 8.5 feet, in order to facilitate the construction of a garage addition to the west side of the existing single-family dwelling. And it is moved that development variance permit DVP 0513 be issued or be authorized for issuance, which would have the effect of varying the minimum allowable rear yard setback requirement in the R1 zone pursuant to Section 5.6063 of the Land Use Bylaw, number 151, from 7.5 meters to 2.6 meters, to allow a garage addition to be constructed on the property described as Lot 26, Section 69, Esquimalt District Plan 14050, 560 Langholm Drive.
Seconder? Second. Questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving through to 6.2.3, DVP variance application DVP 0613 2904 Pickford.
Thank you. This applicant is requesting amendments to land use bylaw to decrease the maximum allowable rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 1.52 meters in order to construct an addition to the east side of the existing single-family dwelling. And it is moved that development variance permit DVP 0613 be authorized for issuance, which would have the effect of varying the minimum allowable rear yard setback requirement in the R1 zone pursuant to Section 5.6063 of the Land Use Bylaw, number 151, from 7.5 meters to 1.52 meters, to allow a building addition to be constructed on the property described as Lot 16, Section 73, Esquimalt District Plan 26203, 2904 Pickford Road.
Second.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to final item in that category, 6.2.4, development application DVP 1113 1880 Island Highway. Councillor Harvey?
Thank you. This applicant is requesting amendments to the land use bylaw, increasing the maximum allowable building height from 15 meters to 22.5 meters, To accommodate a clock tower, reduce the minimum allowable number of trees from 1 tree for each 100 meters squared of developed lot area to 1 tree for each 279 meters squared of developed lot area. Waive the requirement to provide a 3-meter wide continuous landscape strip along each side of the lot abutting a highway, and reduce the required number of parking stalls for retail use from 0.075 per 10 meters squared of gross floor area to 0.61 per 10 meters squared of gross floor area, varying the number of required parking stalls from 95 to 77. In order to accommodate the construction of a 1,262 meters squared or 13,584 foot squared single-story commercial building and associated surface parking facility. And it is moved that Development Variance Permit DVP 1113 be authorized for issuance, which would have the effect of varying A, the increase in maximum allowable height of a building permitted in the district commercial C3 zone pursuant to section 7.3.03 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151 from 15 meters squared to 22.5 meters squared, or 25, not squared, I'm sorry, from 15 meters to 22.5 meters to accommodate a clock tower. B, reduction of the minimum allowable number of trees required in the district commercial C3 zone pursuant to section 7.3.061 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151 from 1 tree for each 100 meters squared of developed lot area to 1 tree for each 279 meters squared of developed lot area. C, waiving the requirement to provide a 3-meter wide continuous landscape strip along each side of the lot abutting a highway in the district commercial C3 zone pursuant to section 7.3062 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151. And finally, reduction of the required number of parking stalls for retail use pursuant to section 2.201 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151 from 0.75 per 10 meters squared of gross floor area to 0.61 per 10 meters squared of gross floor area. On the property described as Lot 4, Section 1, Esquimalt District Plan 30085, 1880 Island Highway, subject to the following condition. In response to the reduction of landscaping and tree requirements provided by this development variance permit, the applicant shall provide a landscape boulevard and alternative transportation amenities, can never say the word, in the road allowances fronting the development, both Island Highway and Goldstream Avenue, to the satisfaction of the city engineer.
Second.
Comments, questions? Councillor Martin?
I apologize for not being at the committee meeting to address this. And as we heard, we had some business owners who had some concerns around the parking. So I will ask our deputy, if through you, Madam Mayor, if you could please explain why we feel as though we should reduce those numbers, because it seems like we are having a constant pressure from development to reduce the number of parking spots.
Certainly. Through the chair, the land use bylaw currently requires quite a few cars to be provided for this proposed development. The plans for the development have development with 2 commercial units. Right now, with parking that would be built as per the variance, the vast majority of the site would be taken up by surface parking. So they're requesting that there be a development with 77 parking spaces for 2 commercial buildings. So the issue really is that our parking requirements are quite high, and that's why we're seeing continually development variance permit applications for parking variances.
Sorry.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you. Good answer. However, okay, let me be more specific. Let me ask this more specific. The building needs, are you suggesting that the building needs for this commercial building is 77 spots or less?
Basically, the developer is saying that 77 spots is appropriate for what they need to lease the development. There's some complexities on this site relating to its former use as a gas station. The certificate of completion from the Ministry of Environment states that a building is limited to construction above grade, which means they can't go below ground for underground parking. So applying our parking requirements, which are quite high, to this site really restricts what they can do in terms of the development. If they're required to provide the 99 parking spaces, the developer would be hogtied in terms of the people he could lease the property to. Not because of the real world requirements of his businesses, but because of the basically the abstract, the basic approach of our parking requirement is that it's applied on a very broad brush as opposed to more site-by-site analysis, which is what we're doing here through a development variance permit application.
Councillor Collington?
Thank you. I will be supporting the parking variance as well as the other variances. It is something that comes up time again, and I certainly know the situation that the two gentlemen are talking about. They have had a lot of challenges in that particular parking lot. For this corner lot, there are a couple of interesting things. One is it is just the retail and not commercial, and it's very unusual for a retailer to ask for a parking variance that's going to not give them enough parking space. That happens sometimes a bit more on the residential side, but retailers want to make sure that there is enough space for people who come and frequent their businesses. So I'm comfortable from that perspective. Also, when you look at the plans that they have, it's very nice to see they're working with the neighbouring property, the CIBC one, and so what they're doing, they haven't been able to complete the discussions yet, but what they're trying to do is to make sure that actually those parking lots kind of intertwine, so that it'll sort of almost sort of slightly increase the parking for everybody in terms of where the best spaces are available. So from that point of view, I am comfortable. Thank you.
Any other comments? I have just one question, if someone could. What is alternative transportation amenity in the road allowance mean?
Madam Chair, that wording was chosen to give some flexibility in terms of what would be appropriate there from a transportation planning perspective, whether it be bicycle lane or some other type of alternative.
But they will have to have something in there.
Correct.
Good. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Martin?
Sorry, I'm just going to make one comment. I guess I feel comfortable supporting this from what I've heard from the deputy. I am getting concerned, however, from a general city policy standpoint, that we're getting very tight in our parking, especially with our commercial hub area. And I know exactly what the people in the audience were talking about regarding that specific corner. And that's where I start feeling a little uncomfortable when we start continually minimizing the amount. Now, I understand that we want to maximize this area, and that's why I'm going to support this tonight. But I guess I'm just saying this from a general standpoint, that I want to make sure that as we build out Capital City Centre and as we build out that commercial hub, we make sure that businesses can be viable because people can park there. So I'm just saying that from a general standpoint. Thank you.
Call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving then into Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee, 6.3.1, proposed LED luminaire retrofit pilot project. Councillor Collington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a great initiative by one of our staff, Helen Lockhart. And just to educate us all, we have approximately 600 ornamental streetlights in Colwood, which consume a whopping 40% of the electricity that we consume out of our own corporate amount. So what is being proposed is a pilot project to test out what would be the savings of switching from the current high-pressure sodium lights into LED lights. The LED lights do cost more upfront, but they last longer and they use considerably less electricity. So the calculation is that over the life cycle of the light, we're looking at something like $700 less per light over that 16-year period. And if you do the math, it ends up sort of the better part of $500,000 by the time you switch out all 600 lights. So the proposal is to test it out in Colwood Creek Park, try it, see if it works well in this location, get feedback and comments from the public in terms of, does it provide a nice light that people would like to see elsewhere in our community as well. The cost of doing that is around $3,500. It could come out of our ornamental lighting budget, but it was noted that we did put some money aside towards being carbon neutral this year, and we felt that that might be an appropriate use for spending of that $3,500. So, committee recommended, and I so move, that staff be directed to go ahead with a pilot project to retrofit 4 100-watt HPS luminaires in Colwood Creek Park with 35-watt luminaires, that should say LED luminaires, for $3,500 to be paid for from the budget from carbon offset, and report back to the committee on the suitability of the lights after 1 year of operation.
Second.
Comments, questions? Councillor Harvey?
And thank you. Through the chair, just a point of clarification. Is it 35 lights for $3,500 each or total?
It's 4 lights going from the high-pressure sodium to LED for a total of $3,500.
Thank you.
Any others? Councillor Martin?
I love the idea. Just if we can save money, fantastic. Now, the question I have, two quick questions. I'm assuming the 35-watt luminary is equivalent from a light distribution standpoint as the 100. And I know a fair amount about the budget, but I do not know about the carbon offset budget, so I'm a little confused on that. So if I could just be clarified one more time on where that's coming from.
Okay, like a lot of other like most other municipalities, Colwood signed the Climate Action Charter, voluntarily committing to be carbon neutral in our corporate operations by 2012, and so I forget the exact amount that we kind of allocated in our budget to say to sort of purchase at $25 a ton the carbon that we produce through our own corporate operations.
I see what you're saying.
But we then made a decision not to actually invest in those purchasing carbon offsets. So we have a piece of our budget that we can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any others? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.3.2, works and services required by the subdivision servicing agreement for Veterans Memorial Parkway Resolution Way subdivision.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the developer of the 45-lot subdivision on Veterans Memorial Parkway and Hyder Drive has made an application for a development variance permit requesting a variance to the frontage improvement for works on VMP for the frontage of this development. He did also request that we do this for a future development, but we were informed that that may in fact not be legal, so this only deals with the portion on the west side. Staff and the developer have worked closely together to come up with this recommendation, and it was certainly supported by committee. There are 3 parts to the recommendation. One deals with having a separated sidewalk that's about 2.2 meters wide. A second deals with proposed bollard lighting along that area, bringing it down to a pedestrian level. And the third deals with bioswales going along that area. Because it needs a DVP, what we actually need to do tonight is to direct staff to issue the notice of intention to deal with the DVP. So I'm not going to read the recommendation that you have in front of you. I'm going to read a slightly different one. So it is recommended that the notice of intention to consider the recommendation from the September 4th, 2013 Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee regarding the works and services required by the subdivision servicing agreement for the VMP Resolution Way subdivision be issued. And just for clarification, what that would do is we would issue notice of the development variance permit. That could then come back to the speediest process then for the developer is for that to come directly back to council on September 30th rather than going through committee, but it does give people an opportunity to comment during public participation.
Good.
Second.
Comments, questions, council? I would just say that it's always heartening when we see developers and staff working together to collaborate on a project that will enhance the local area. So kudos to all that were involved in this one. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6.3.3, Island Highway Landscaping, Whale Road to View Royal.
Thank you. This is where it gets fun. This is finally moving forward with our landscaping for Old Island Highway. So Council will certainly remember seeing this before, and we gave direction to the landscape architect to go back and have a look at some more native plantings and come back to us with a final plan. And that's what we're looking at here. So let me go first to the kind of the generic of the plan. I'm really hoping that you guys have this in front of me, and I'm seeing that you don't. Okay. There was, for those of you who read your TPI agendas in detail, which I know is all of you, you will have seen that there are some slightly different species in front of you. One of the things that Mr. Mazza did was to make sure that now all of the plantings are native, not only to British Columbia, but actually native to Vancouver Island. So you'll see things in there like a local vine maple, the Eddie White Wonder dogwood, a paper birch, some of the shrub species, the Idaho blue fescue, which yes is native despite its name, the red twig dogwood. So you're still getting those kind of nice effects, but using local plantings and trying to look at things like the vine maple, for example, works because it doesn't grow quite so big and tall, so it's under power lines, so it's good to have it in a way that's not going to interfere with those. Another piece in terms of some of the details in here, there are not massive changes, but again, discussion between staff and some of the businesses and the West Shore Parks and Rec. There's been some slight moving around of trees so that it works better for everybody involved. So those are some of the sort of tweaks and changes that you'll see. Still hoping to move forward with drilling the well in the very near future, and we all have our fingers crossed that that's actually going to produce the water that we're looking for. So the other piece of this is there was a very generous offer made by the Saunders family, again in discussion with Mr. Mazza and staff, and this was also presented to TPI. And what you see is the addition of some kind of pavers in front of the Subaru building, some additional landscaping actually around the telephone poles. So again, it kind of really sort of brightens up that area. And the Saunders family have actually offered to pay for all of those improvements and to look after the maintenance of them as well. So that provides a significant savings to the city. And Mr. McCusker, remind me, this wasn't actually, like this was sort of outside of our original area of landscaping, wasn't it? So it's kind of like an added piece. So you will see that we have two recommendations from committee, and I will move them one by one. So the first was, it was recommended by committee, and I so move, that council accept the proposal for landscaping and pavers in front of Saunders Subaru to be paid for and maintained by Saunders as presented at the Transportation Infrastructure Committee meeting of September 4th, 2013.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Comments, questions? Councillor Logan?
Thank you, Worship. As I did in committee, I will not be supporting that recommendation for a couple of reasons. I can only envision conflicts with pedestrians and cars in an area where it was not meant to have vehicles. Vehicles parked there because it was not well maintained either by the city or the business that it frontages. I was around when that intersection was constructed, and if it was meant to have a pullout in front of that particular business, it would have been constructed. But right now, what's being envisioned, from my perspective, doesn't live up to the full potential that it should. And meanwhile, we're asking, notwithstanding the generous contributions that the business owner is proposing, we're asking other property owners further up around Colwood Corner to invest a significant amount in landscaping to spruce up the place. And here we are promoting basically parking on a city boulevard, which has never been envisioned. And quite frankly, although there will be a landscaped strip in the front that abuts Souk Road, that will be driven on without a doubt, as we can see happening outside McDonald's. Hence the reason why there are rocks being placed there, and I think it sets a different a precedent. You know, our boulevards are meant to park on, and I don't think that's the type of image we want to set. If we want to have parking on the street, then we construct proper pullouts, not something that has not been engineered and envisioned in the first place when those sidewalks and improvements to the intersection were done. So, notwithstanding their offer, it's just not something that I think is in the city's best interest. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Martin?
Addressing Councillor Logan's concerns, I would like to hear the engineer's opinions on that, those statements.
I think that the proposal, in a way, copies what has been done in other boulevards in other cities occasionally. One of the big differences here is that the current speed on that road is much higher than, say, Goldstream and Langford, where similar parking is allowed. However, in that area, the parking is composed of bays of 3 or 4 parking spots where the cars can just pull off and then drive out into traffic again. Here, the cars actually have to go into essentially the driveway and make a sharp turn to park on the boulevard, where they're separated from the traffic by a piece of landscaping. So it is a little different, and we thought about that and decided that it wasn't very different from vehicles just driving into the entrance and driving out the exit. In other words, where the vehicles will be crossing from the road onto the boulevard, they're still using what is the entrance and the exit to the parking lot. So from a safety point of view, it seems reasonable. But it really is, the rest of it is really a political decision, not an engineering or technical decision of any sort.
May I just do a follow-up? So is this pullout, are we anticipating that this pullout will be utilized only for Saunders Subaru, or are we anticipating that this would be something that would be available to the general public to use as for parking?
There's no intention on the city's part, and there's no request from Saunders Subaru that there be any controls put on this parking.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Cullington?
Thank you. Maybe just to respond to some of the concerns as I see it, I would be very uncomfortable with a kind of a regular parking bay there, again, because you're encouraging people to sort of pull on and pull off a fairly fast-moving highway. There is a barrier curb around those that kind of front-end parking that stops people just pulling off. And you know, we certainly, you'll all have seen, you know, how it's used at the moment. Quite often you get the kind of the big long truck that's unloading cars, and you know, it is hard to know where else you would get something like that happening. But Mr. Saunders did note that you know, it is used from time to time by others occasionally at night as sort of excess parking if there's an event going on, and as the city engineer said, there's not an intention that this is sort of a private parking space from that point of view. But I think it is rarely used, and for my part, I see this as a real opportunity to do some improvements on a frontage that we wouldn't otherwise be able to get to for some time yet. So I see this as a distinct improvement to that part of the old Island Highway.
Anyone else? Councillor Martin?
Just clarifications. With this, and through the chair to engineering, through this, I know they will, the recommendation is that they'll maintain it, but at any point, this is still city property that we could re-landscape it if we chose down the road to.
At the committee meeting, the representative from Saunders Subaru, David Saunders, he said specifically that if the city came along and decided 2 days later to dig it up and place landscaping there, that Saunders Subaru would accept that. So there's no legal reason why we can't do what we want to do with it, and he has not tried to impose a moral reason.
Okay. And the second question is, did we ever, from a committee standpoint, did we ever determine if they were to do this, were we going to mandate by like a certain date? And does that need to be in the motion? Sorry for them. So like if this motion passed, that they would be landscaping and paving, are we as a city going to request that they have it done by a certain date?
I think it would be everybody's intention that it be done the same time as the rest of the landscaping. In fact, I imagine they would just cover the cost in the landscaping. But if they chose not to follow through, we know already from a preliminary look at the bids we've got that the city doesn't have the money to.
So it would just sit empty anyways?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
There's no liability at issue with the city to have that anomaly there off of a higher speed roadway, is there?
Well, from a legal point of view, no, there isn't. Is that, there is a separation between the road and the curb, and then this parking area, and then the sidewalk. So there's no difference in it. Technically, it's a 50 km/h zone, although people zip along there at least 70 quite often. However, the vehicles are well enough off the road. It's the same as if you put an actual parking bay in there, an actual inlet, and back out again.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Call the question, then all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And there is a second motion there which looks at approving the entire works. And we are, of course, going to do this to stay within our allotted budget of $310,000. So hence the second part of the motion. So it was recommended by committee, and I so move that council approve the entire works outlined in the report on the Old Island Highway landscaping, dated August 27th, 2013, subject to deletion of the optional works if required to ensure that the works be completed within the allotted budget of $310,000.
Second.
Comments, questions? Councillor Martin?
Sorry. And again, just really quickly, and I'm sorry I didn't see this. Is there a date on that one? The completion date was?
Oh, I want a date. I said, oh, we want a date.
Yeah. I just don't know if it was in.
I was hoping you were going to add to the motion is what
I'm happy to add to the ocean. It was just that I wasn't sure if in the report itself there's a date.
Well, I can
completion.
I can report that the low bid includes a proposed completion of October 30th.
Of this year?
Yes.
Could we put that in the motion?
Would you like that in the motion?
I would be happy to ensure that it's done before the end of December, because I know when we did the last set of improvements, we did run into a bit of a delay along there, and we kind of got caught up because it was part of a grant process, and we had to have that grant opportunity extended in there. So I want to ensure that we have, ample time to get it done, but not so long that it gets forgotten in the works. So I like the October date, but I'd certainly like to.
I'll give them to October 31st. How about that? talking to the landlord.
Anyways,
Okay.
do we need a date in there, though? Or are you taking that on notice?
Um,
Because I'll be happy to put a date in
Madam
there.
Chair, we put a date in, please.
Councillor Martin, can you put that date in?
Yes, I would like to move, sorry, what am I doing? Is it a friendly amendment? Is it a,
No,
what
it's
am I
not.
doing here?
It's just an amendment.
An amendment. Okay, I'm doing an amendment to this, which will include date of November 30th, 2013.
Second.
We'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. And then on the original
No main motion.
call the question, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Oh, Councillor Logan is so happy. It's more landscaping. With a date.
With the date. Okay.
Alrighty, last item in that section, 6.3.4, design of Ryder Hesdall Royal Bay Phase 3 subdivision servicing agreement, proposed secondary school site, Royal Bay Secondary School.
Okay, and again, my apologies. I had hoped that this larger copy would have been given to you, but I know you read your TPI agenda.
Well, look at that.
Oh, he just happens to have. Okay. So again, I think this is a wonderful thing to see happening. The folks from the representative of the BCIMC have been working with our staff looking at the appropriate cross-section for Ryder Hesdall Way, which of course is the one in front of the school. The representative gave us a kind of a wonderful explanation of kind of how they went from a very kind of standard road cross-section and ended up with something that looks much, much nicer and certainly in my mind functions much, much better. So you are now all looking at this. So within the same road width, what happened is, and I'll sort of cut to the chase, the car traffic sort of stays in the middle. There is a bioswale on one side so that you're collecting the rainwater and disposing of it. You're looking at the side up against the residential area where you have a very nice sidewalk with some very attractive looking lighting. On the side adjacent to the school, you actually have a multi-use path that has sort of pedestrian use and two-way bicycle traffic. They found a very appropriate way to bury all of the necessary services within that same road right-of-way. And I think the overall standard will be one that hopefully will be sort of encouraging the applicant to kind of look at throughout quite a bit of the Royal Bay development where it's appropriate. So it was recommended by committee, and I so move that council accept the modifications proposed to Ryder Hesdall Way and add a requirement to amend the design to accommodate approved landscape and irrigation details and plans. That was a piece that we didn't get.
Enthusiastically seconded.
Comments, questions from council? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving into bylaws, item number 7, bylaw number 1513, final readings. City of Colwood Subdivision and Development Bylaw 1995, Amendment number 48, Schedule A, CD 14, Zone 308, 324, Belmont Bylaw 1513, 2013.
Move final.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Bylaw number 1517, first, second, and third readings for Colwood Main Sewer Local Service Area Bylaw, Establishment and Loan Authorization for 495 Dressler Road.
Move introduction.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Move second.
Second.
Comments, questions? Seeing, yes?
Do I need to ask a question, Mr. Engineer?
As to whether they've been informed?
Correct.
Yes, everybody is informed every time now.
Thank you.
This person must have been desperate considering the information we give to them.
Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Move third.
Second, third.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Bylaw number 1518 for second and third readings. Again, same location, 495 Dressler, but this is for the Colwood West Sewer Local Area Service Establishment and Loan Authorization Bylaw.
Move introduction.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Move second.
Second.
Comments, questions?
Are we sure that they know?
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Move third.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. There is no in-camera this evening, folks,
Yay.
so there is nothing to release.
Move
Looking
adjournment.
for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank